For anyone that loves God sounds, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. This is probably the best answer I've heard to this question.
I think it was actually Ricky Gervais tell the story of the baby being born in, let's say it's Africa or somewhere else, or India or wherever it might be, the UK, who is born with a parasite eating its eyeball out from the inside.
I know this, yeah.
And I remember hearing that when I was 18.
Yeah, terrible.
And thinking, okay, so if God's all-knowing, he knew that that baby was going to have its eye eaten out by a parasite before the baby was born, but allowed the baby to be born anyway. And with my moral compass, I would have intervened. And if he's omnipotent, all-powerful, he could have intervened. Yeah. So how do you, these questions, where is the flaw in that question? Is there a flaw? Or is there a misunderstanding?
I think there can be a misunderstanding, but it's a very understandable one, because I feel exactly the weight of that as well. My question that I set out a few minutes ago, is there any evidence anywhere that God, you can trust God with it? And the major piece of evidence, to my mind, is the cross of Christ. And if Christ really is God, whom he claimed to be, this is God's suffering. And why is God suffering? Well, it certainly tells me that he hasn't remained distant from human suffering, but has himself become part of it. Now, that's not an answer. There are no simplistic answers here. But you see, once you remove God, that child, there's no hope for it. It's dead, gone, out, nothing. But suppose God can compensate that child, because he has the power to raise from the dead, as he did with Jesus. That changes everything for me. The universe without a resurrection. I don't know whether you've ever watched my debate, the first one with Richard Dawkins.
I suspect I have.
I
watched them all.
The very last bit of it, we were suddenly told we'd only 2 minutes to wrap up instead of 9 each. And I said something about the resurrection. And I'll never forget what Richard said. It was something like this. We've had a great discussion about big ideas and so on. And now we come down to the resurrection of Jesus. How petty, how parochial, how unworthy of the universe. And I remember thinking, if Jesus rose from the dead, it's the biggest thing that's ever happened, because it may open the way to understanding that there is life after death. And you see, C.S. Lewis has helped me a lot. I used to listen to him. I'm that old. He has helped me a lot in this idea of a sense in which there's more than one world. And we're so conditioned to thinking that this world is the only one there is. But if there is another world, and there is a loving God, then I suspect, I can't prove this to you, but when we one day see and enter that world and see what God has done with the kind of child you mentioned, we'll have no more questions.
So you think he's compensated that child?
Oh, yes. God is a God of love. He'll do much better than... Look, the biggest gift that God has given you and me is our moral sense and the capacity to love. Now, we analyze problems like this with our God-given capacities. And we come, and I understand it perfectly well because I've come to the same place as you, and say, well, God, if I had been you, I would have done this. Well, I suspect one day we're going to find out why God didn't. He's going to let me die one day. I've nearly died already. I've said goodbye to my wife, by the way, and they thought they weren't going 14 years ago. And I said goodbye. And it's interesting when things like that hit you. Forgive the personal reference, but it's very real. Total peace both of us had as I went into the operating theatre. And the surgeon saved my life. And this would take us down another rabbit hole. But I got to New Zealand just a few days after the earthquake. And I was on a lecture tour. And everything was scrapped. I was on television, radio, but only one topic: why earthquakes? You see. And I met people that had lost loved ones and all this kind of thing. And I talked about the God who has suffered and raised Jesus from the dead. And the interesting thing was, it was that that gave the most hope to the people that were listening to me, because they told me and wrote me little letters afterwards and so on. So I think there's something big here, but that God allows these things to happen is something that in the end we have to take on board, even when they happen to us.
But why doesn't God do something? People ask all the question, but there's people starving. Couldn't he do something for them? And my question is, what would the world look like if God stopped doing something? If God literally removed his grace and mercy from the nations and stopped intervening, what do you think the earth would look like? It's so easy to say, why doesn't God do something when you don't see the big picture? When you're not looking from God's standpoint. And we all do it because we don't like suffering. We're designed not to suffer. Even Jesus before the cross didn't want to go. He said, Lord, if there's another way, may it happen, but not my will, let your will be done. You see, right there is how we need to react to suffering. And sometimes we need to combat it. Rather than going to the doctor and get some medication, sometimes we need to seek the Lord of what to do. And I'm not saying don't go to doctors, but I'm saying sometimes we think that pill is going to fix our problem, when in reality there's something deeper. Even your suffering may be something deeper. Maybe it's your lifestyle that's bringing the suffering. Maybe it's sin. Maybe it's past trauma that was never dealt with. Maybe it's your current relationships or what you're doing. Or maybe it's not your fault at all. We do not have all the answers in this life, but we have to remember this. I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Something greater is around the corner. Even for that baby that died, for those children, for the innocents. You think God is going to cast the innocent children into hell? He holds every tear in his hands. But what he will reject is the prideful. He will oppose those who are arrogant in their ways, who have chosen to live in the darkness rather than in the light, who desire their own fleshly appetite than the things of God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. The day is coming when there will be no more tears for those who have trusted in the living God, for those who have sought truth and purity, who have humbled themselves in the light of their mistakes and their wrong choices. I know that God is good and that he is coming back for his people, and for those who may have never heard of him but have sought for him with their whole heart. You must understand that the Lord knows all things and we don't, but he will make all things work together for good. And the suffering is not wasted in the eyes of God. Your suffering is not wasted. And though we may not know why, one day we will. One day we're going to see everything, and everything then will make sense. But until then, we must have faith and hold on to hope.